Good morning, folks. Today is Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. This is the Podman Community Cabal meeting with an A in there that's missing in the spelling. This is a meeting that we generally talk about upcoming technical issues or designs and those kind of things, whereas the Podman Community meeting, which happens on even-numbered months on the first Tuesday, is about doing demos and such for Podman Builder or any of the other companion tools or related technologies. So thank you for being here today. I've added a link within the chat for the meeting itself. I'll go ahead and pin that, where I'm going to be taking notes during the day if I make anything out of whack there, or if you have stuff that you want to add as far as links or anything like that, please go ahead and do so. And today we only have one topic, but it may take us a little while because it's a pretty interesting topic. Jan will be talking to us today about doing a MonoRepo, which is a consolidation of some of our containers projects under the GitHub board. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and I'll hand it over to Jan.
Yeah, thank you. So let me share my screen. It should be this one. You should see the presentation, right?
Looks good for me.
Okay, so let's start. So my name is Jan Kaluša, and I had a task to actually investigate the MonoRepo in context of the Podman. So let's start with motivation at first. Oh, by the way, in the agenda, you can find the link to the slides. So you can open it and check it yourself after or even during the talk. So as I said, let's start with motivation. Basically, we want to improve the release process and reduce the vendoring issues we have while releasing the Podman, and also like improve the development workflow. And the idea is that we have multiple repositories we have to maintain, and those are so-called polyrepos. I will get to these terms in the next slide. And we want to convert them into single monorepo. I was mainly focused on the three repositories I have here: the common repository, the image repository, and the storage repository. And the goal was to check like how these repos could be merged into the monorepo and what this would mean for the Podman and the workflows and everything. So let's go to the next slide. Here I'm trying to explain like what the monorepo is for anyone on the call who have no clue. So on the left side, you can see those three polyrepos. And those are basically single code repositories with just a single project or just a single Go module. So we have like common Git repository, image Git repository, and the storage Git repository, and they are separate. They have like separate GitHub projects, separate issues, and I mean issue trackers and everything like that. And we would like to create a monorepo from that, or actually that was like the goal of this project to and investigate what it would take. So the monorepo is on the right side, and the difference is obvious. It's a single repository, but it contains multiple projects, multiple Go modules. This is just an example how this could look like. Of course, the structure, the directory structure can be different. It depends on how we actually decide to implement this. But in this example, we have the image directory, and there is a Go mode for the image module. We have the storage directory and Go mode for the storage module. And there is also like go.work file, which uses go.work module to actually tie everything together. So if you start Go build or Go test, it actually counts with those local image and storage modules and uses them instead of getting them from some remote Git repository. So you can work locally and test and implement some features. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to raise a hand, or even if you have some idea about those slides. I have another screen here, so I see everything. So you can stop me that way. Is monorepo better? That's the question. And there is no simple answer. But let's imagine we decide to switch to monorepo, and we have following topics which are important and which are actually like changed by this decision. And I will, in the rest of the slides, get through all of these topics and discuss like what the impact of choosing monorepo would be. So let's start with migration. And by that, I mean migration of polyrepos into the MonoRepo. So this one is quite easy, actually. I was surprised. I was thinking that it might be harder, but there are already some projects like Git filter repo and also some documentation about how to convert polyrepo into single monorepo. And the important thing is that it also preserves the Git history. So when I was showing here, like we have image directory and storage directory, all those files here would preserve the history from these repos on left. So git log would work, git blame would work, and everything. So this is like not real blocker, and it's actually like easier than one would think. So creating that monorepo is not a hard task. Of course, there are like files, like make files, README files. We would have to merge them manually. That's needed definitely, but it's not blocker definitely. The next part is about importing Go modules. Here it starts a little bit to be a little bit more interesting, because if we switch to MonoRepo, also the URLs to the modules would be different. So we have to basically go through all of those other projects using the image module, storage module, and common module, and change the URLs to the new URL pointing to the MonoRepo. Again, it's not real blocker, but depending on how much those repos, those original repos are used in public, we might have some like time where things basically stop working for someone, or they would use outdated code. We just have to like announce it and get some time to people, and also to our team to change those URLs and adjust everything so they are using the right MonoRepo URL. But again, it's doable and probably not hard to do. It's about communication. Now, about the contributions. And if we have just single repository instead of 3 repositories, it's obviously easier for people to discover these repositories. There's just one repo containing like all those 3 things. And like ideally, we could also in the future include Podman in that repository. So like everything would be in single monorepo, and therefore new contributors, it should be easier for them to find out where to open the PR, where the code lives, and so on. Also, like things like grep in the code, like when you have the Podman cloned locally, it would be easier to work with the repository. Related to that, we could have single atomic PRs for every change. I think this is like the most important part of the contribution section, because right now, if you want to change something in common, which also has to be changed, or it has some follow-up change in the storage repository or image repository, you have to do multiple PRs, which are linked together. And it's probably hard to maintain those PRs and also to review them, because you don't see the big picture from single PR. You have to open multiple PRs, check how they work together, and so on. And this leads to another point, to the next point, to actually like check that those PRs work together. You have to change the reference versions to other modules, at least I think so, because otherwise you cannot really like check that your change in the common module works correctly with the storage module or image module, or even with the Podman itself. And if we have all of those modules in single repository, it's much easier to check that things work together. Also, vendoring is easier, because you have just single repository where the vendoring happens instead of three repositories. So those are all like advantages of this monorepo approach for contributions. Now, for the disadvantages, it's harder to list PRs for a single module, because everything is mixed together in the GitHub interface. So if you open like pull requests, you would see all those PRs. basically per feature, not per project, which is different from what we have right now. And we can like group those PRs using the code owners. So for example, GitHub has a feature that if you specify code owners, it will find out that this PR is touching some directory, for example, storage. So it can assign the PR to the storage team or like to people, who are familiar with this code. So there are some ways how to make it easier. You can also like use a labeler to assign PRs. But it's not ideal. It's kind of like extra work we have to get through and extra filtering you have to do on pull requests if you want to check just pull requests for the storage. Similar, like if you have merged pull requests, you can use the history like section of the modules directory. So in the GitHub, you can open the directory. You can click on the history and check what happened for the directory, and that way you can see what happened to the storage module, what happened to the image module, and so on. But it's not that nice user interface as poly repos with real pull requests separated by project. So this like contributions it provides like some benefits, but it also has some disadvantages. But I think the benefits here outweighs the disadvantages. Another part is releases. There's important point that although we have all the modules in a single repository, it doesn't mean that we have to release them all at once, but we can. We can still treat each module as a separate unit and release them independently. So we can, for example, create the storage release without releasing the image module. But it's again a little bit like complicated on the Git side, because right now, for example, we have the version tags in the storage. There's, for example, version 5.350, and this obviously doesn't make any sense if you have MonoRepo. You will have to prefix that with the storage prefix, for example. So the release process would have to probably change, but the benefit would be that vendoring, as I said, would be easier. Of course, we can decide that we will release everything all together. That way, it would be easier, but we will lose that ability to release single project. So that's probably like question we can discuss later if we get back to the slides. Another disadvantage I have listed here is that if you have that atomic PR touching, or I see Tom has some question.
Yeah, just saying for projects outside of our scope, somebody that's vendoring in our stuff, such as Cryo, for instance, are there going to be problems for them, or what changes are they going to have to worry about if this is implemented? And if you want to answer that later, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those projects that they would have to change the link to the like our image, our container image repository. But other than that, I believe it should work as it is. But we would have to somehow notify them, that this repository, the old one, is no longer like up to date, basically, and we are moving here to the MonoRepo. Or maybe there is some like Golang magic which I haven't discovered yet, which can like somehow like forward those things. But
translation of sorts. Yeah, I don't know. I think there is, but I don't know that there is.
Yeah. So let's continue. I ended up here. I wanted to say that with single atomic PRs, it's also harder to find out what's like forward and backward compatible. I mean, when you change something in 3 modules, and then you want to release just one, you have to know, that those others 2 does not depend on your change. If you have single poly repo, like storage repository, and you are doing one change by another, it's easier to track what you have done, and you actually can be sure that you are releasing the storage module, which does not depend on something new in the unreleased common module. But if everything is mixed up together, it's not that intuitive, and there might be some issues like that. So that's for the releases. Now here comes the first kind of a blocker about builds and CI. In theory, if you have MonoRepo, in theory, if you have MonoRepo and you have right tooling, all modules can be tested together, and the CI tests are run in a way that it prevents the incompatible changes to land into the repository. The problem is that it needs some smart build system and smart CI system. Otherwise, we would be building everything, all the modules, even if the PR is touching just like one of them. And I mean, building is not the most expensive part, maybe, but the testing probably is. So we would need some way how to basically do not run tests which are not influenced by the PR. So if you change something in the image module, you probably don't want to run the test suite for the common module, because that would be waste of resources and time. There are like some build systems which are smart and can do dependencies between modules and evaluate them and actually cache things and run only tests which are influenced, which are impacted by the change, like Bazel and others. The issue, which is marked as a blocker here, is that Fedora does not include them. So we probably cannot use them. And we might decide to just use Go build maybe locally, for Fedora, or like our current way, and do something smarter for PRs. But it's questionable. Like we will be testing something we are not using for developing, and I personally don't like that. But it's also a way. Or another option, if you don't want to use those smart things, is to run some custom pipeline, like basically change our make files and make them a little bit smarter, so we detect that the change is in the image, and therefore we don't have to run the common code. And I see there is discussion ongoing, so I think Miloslav wrote on the chat first, so I will read what's there, and Miloslav, if you want to speak up.
Yeah, I think if we change the lower levels of the stack, I don't think any automation is going to figure out that it shouldn't test all the rest, unless we specifically decide to exclude that. If we change the C common layer, we would probably want to exclude C image and C storage tests, but that's also not too difficult to set up.
Yeah, that's right. Like, however, I think the Bazel, it should have the ability to define dependency between modules and run the tests. Like, I mean, don't run the tests which are not needed. That's one of the core features of Bazel. But as I said, like right now, we probably doesn't want to use it because Fedora does not include it, and I don't see a way. Like we shouldn't be the one importing it to the Fedora. So yeah, Paul.
Yeah, so we do that already on Podman in Sierra CI. So there's in the Sierra YAML, there's a condition where you can check what source file has been changed, and you can use that to conditionally enable or disable a specific CI task. That's done for machine, for example. If like package machine is not changed, then it wouldn't run machine tests, since these are like slow, expensive tests. You can expand that however way you want. It gets a bit ugly because like every path condition, like inside the YAML file, and then like duplicated across like, I don't know, like 40 tasks. It's not very nice from a reusability standpoint, but it works. At least for like the testing, you need to manually define like what you want to test. It's not, there's no logic to automatically figure this out, of course.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So it seems we are already like doing something like that. It's just like we have to probably be careful here to not reinvent too much like of the build systems, because we should be working on Podman and not build systems. So, but I mean, if we go to the MonoRepo, we will have to address this issue somehow. Probably it depends how far we go with the MonoRepo idea. I also have as a last slide, I also have some plan, you know, how to move forward and what to do. So we will probably get to that. Okay, so I will go to the next slide, and that's about code ownership. Again, something to think about. GitHub permission model works on a repo level mostly. So we can specify like different permissions for different people for each project we have. So different people can have maintainer rights for the image or the storage and so on. But if we merge everything into a single MonoRepo, we lose this ability. That's not a real blocker if we are fine with that. That, you know, all the people in the team have the same permissions for all those 3 repos. We can also like play with code owners a little bit to request or to require some X from different people per each module. So again, like that's just a note for everyone here to keep in mind in case you know about something which would be broken by this assumption. Issue tracking, that's interesting problem, because in case we would use MonoRepo, we should probably also move the issues to that single repository, because having project just for issues is like not very practical, and therefore all those issues would be mixed together, you know, and we need a way how to distinguish between the issues for particular Go modules or projects in the MonoRepo. And usually it's solved by the labels, which are added there by whoever triages the issues, or even some automation which detects like what the issue is talking about and proposes a label which belongs to the issue. And this is extra work which has to be done by someone. I'm not sure who is actually like triaging the issues in the Podman, because I'm here for just a month now. But I mean, if someone is doing that, it might not be that hard to actually add another step there to just add the label that this issue belongs to storage, belongs to image, and so on. The benefit is that it's easier for people to report problems, because there is just single tracker instead of 3 trackers. So they report it to the single place, and we don't have to like move it around. We just change the label, which is probably easier. Don't know. So that's about issues. And here's the summary of all those previous slides. I try to capture that we have like the migration is not big deal. Importing those modules is also fine. Contributions is also fine. Releases too. Of course, everything requires some work, but there are no like too many open questions. But the builds and CI, that's where the fun begins, and what we probably like will have to discuss in case we will go to the MonoRepo, and what we will have to do some technical preview for, or like POC. And also the issue tracking, I don't have clear opinion on that, because I'm not sure how the triaging happens in the Podman yet. So this is probably also, it also needs some answers here to find out how the MonoRepo would actually change the workflow to real people doing the work. And this is the last slide. It's about what to do next. I mean, so in case we will want to explore the MonoRepo approach more, we should definitely like consider hybrid model, and this is actually what we are doing so far. We are not trying to propose MonoRepo for everything in containers namespace, but just for the storage, image, and common. And I think that's a good way, because adding Podman there, for example, this would like add much more issues. I mean, really like the GitHub issues, and much more PRs there, and it's much more like heavy traffic repository. So maybe just like using MonoRepo for some of the repos might be good, and keeping using pull repos for others, at least for now, or maybe forever, is also an option. Tom, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, and just you keep saying, storage, image, common, and then Podman. You can't forget builder in between those two, because that's going to be a big chunk as well.
Yeah, sorry for that. I completely forgot about that one. I was mainly like focused on those three. I'm using Podman as an example of something else, what is
right.
not. Yeah. But you are right, definitely.
But I do agree with this approach for the hybrid model to start out with and see where the problems lie.
Yep. And well, then we can, or Miroslav?
Go on. I can.
Yeah. Okay. So I will finish this slide, and then we will open broader discussion. So, after that, we can, or I can actually like merge those three repositories into some like production-ready monorepo just for testing. We would not use it in production, but it should be like, it should show how the workflow would look like in the monorepo world. I would use the go.work as described in my document, where I describe this implementation into more details, and play with the code owners and other tasks, so other tools. So we have some working example of MonoRepo, which I can further present. And I would also like to implement the GitHub CI workflow in some like naive way. And by that I mean that basically all the tests are executed for now, and at least we find out some data from that, like how much time it needs to run the test suite, how much time it needs to build everything, and maybe we will find out that it's actually fine, and we don't have to do any extra optimizations there, or maybe we'll find out that we need to do some optimizations and do something like what Paul suggested earlier. I think like merging everything together, this is like 1 week of work. I'm trying to be a little bit like pessimistic on those estimations. For the GitHub CI, I think the workflows are simple, but I'm not sure how Cirrus CI works right now, from the administration perspective, like what are the permissions needed, where to get them, and so on. So it's hard for me to predict that part. But once we are done with these, we can basically have another call where we evaluate this. I can do another presentation, show the MonoRepo and how it works in practice, and show some data. So these could be the next steps in case all those like pros and cons I mentioned before are okay to you, and we decide that we want to check this further and spend some more time on that. And that's all. Thanks for your attention, and now it's time for discussion and questions.
All right. I would like to advocate for the external C image callers. If we are moving, I guess that's fine, but we should only move once. So if we are planning repo changes or project changes for the CNCF handoff, we should figure out the final C image location so that callers don't have to move twice, or maybe figure out some, I don't know, automation, code generation, something to make this completely transparent to users. And then there are 2 prototypes that I would probably want to see. Maybe you've already done that. One is a PR that changes several repos with an API incompatible change to see that this works. I think the go.work documentation suggests that it should, but it would be nice to see. And the other is I would be interested in seeing what we do for a Podman release when we tag all of the repos at once with a new version. Whether we can do that in a single PR that passes tests, or whether we would still need to do 1 PR per project internally, so that we tag C storage and then we update the C image version reference in C images version reference to C storage, and then we tag C common and the like.
Yeah, thanks, Miroslav. I noted those two. For the release, I actually haven't done anything for a test. For that first use case, I've done some tests on my local repo. It was without the CI, but like I'm sure this one will work.
Good.
Paul?
Yeah, for the second case, if you release, I think that it's the important part is to release in 1 PR or like 1 commit, where you would update all the module versions, and then if you tag it, you have like 1 tag. I think having these individual modules as a migration strategy might make sense, but I don't think long term I don't see the value in having that. If we want to make sure this is the 1 commit where CI passed, if we still do like 1 PR per thing, we haven't improved the release process in the end.
I mean, this is up to Tom, but I think if that were the only cost, we might be fine with paying it. I guess what would happen is that we can manually create go.mod updates for everything at once, but we wouldn't know how to fill the go.sum checksums in there. That's where I think this breaks.
Yeah, Alex.
Hello. I would like only to share the experience that we had here in Osimir. I already sent the message in the chat, but I'm going to talk also. So basically, we had this MonoRepo in Osimir as well, using the Go workspaces, because we needed to have the 2 versions running parallel, and one calling the other with the same binary. So we did it. It worked fine. The only challenge that we faced was that sometimes the V1 version was using dependencies that were old, and V2 wanted to use a new version of the dependency. And we are stuck in the middle, because sometimes to bump the dependency in V2, we had to change a lot of code in V1, like major changes. So this is only like experience that I would like to share, because if the models are going to evolve together, it's fine, it's good. But if you want to evolve only one alone, then it's a little tricky, because maybe you need to change the others, and maybe the changes are majors in order to be able to update all the dependencies together. So only to keep this in mind,
Yeah, but I think in our use case, we actually like in the end we have to choose 1 version when releasing, right? And like anyone correct me, because I'm not sure if that's how it works with releases Podman. So we have to have single version of the dependency in the end. So we have to actually like develop everything with that single version. And I think the vendoring issue is actually about the way that we bump something in 1 module and we do not do that in another, and then things start breaking when we put them together. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, we don't have frozen stable versions to maintain. But we do run into dependency updates from time to time, like the recent Docker change where they deprecated or removed a lot of public API. In that case, we ended up with the image moving pretty fast, but there was a lot of work that needed to happen in Podman. So for a time, the two were inconsistent. Arguably, blocking that update and doing everything in a single step would be much cleaner.
Yeah, so it seems it's a completely different use case that we have here. So fine, great.
It does mean that we move at the pace of the slowest project, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the benefit for us, at least when we only talk about the repos we have full control of. Personally, at least, or like the example right now is common image and storage. I don't think, I mean, we will get some benefit out of that by merging that, at least in terms of rendering, between like storage and image is quite common, or like when we are doing the release, you take like 3 repos, one at a time, which takes time, which is slow. But I think for like day-to-day testing wise, you need to have like Podman and Builder there, or even Scopio, because these binaries run the final like end-to-end tests, and these are the tests that catch the most bugs. So I mean, it's definitely a good place to start on, but I don't think that helps like the testing situation to make sure that the Podman tests aren't breaking. So
So I will ask one more question. It seems that nobody is really against the idea of MonoRepo after the presentation. So
I am.
this, yep.
I'm not for this. I'm not for this at this time or the very near future. I think Milosov is pulling on really good threads, that there will be inflection points in our projects, like moving to CNCF, where if we decide at that time it would be valuable, I would be more supportive. But I think things like that, without a for sure this is going to help, and what Paul points out too, I would not be in favor of doing it now. But that's one vote.
I was asking mainly because of the what to do next slide. Like, is it should we or should I continue exploring this and prepare that production-ready preview of those like 3 merged projects into single monorepo and present that, or is it kind of like waste of time and I should focus on something else? That's mainly mine, where I'm leading with that question. I'm not proposing to do it right now, but I would like to know if someone feels that this is like completely wrong way how we would like to proceed, like how we would like to structure the repository and so on, and we should not do it at all, basically.
I would kind of like to hear from people focused on infrastructure. For me personally, I'm neutral at the best. I mean, it's extra churn for all users. It's extra churn for us. The thing that I would want to see out of this is some improvement in something CI, testing times, testing infrastructure in general. There is obviously the benefit of landing API changes at once. That's valid. But it could easily be swamped by making CI unmanageable or move into a state where nobody can deal with the complexity, or where just making all of these changes as a single project and then having nobody to maintain all that might also be a risk I'm worried about. I think we have people dedicated to this, but I would like to hear what they think or what.
Yeah, I think Paul was first.
I mean, for CI, I'm not necessarily convinced that it makes things more complicated if you consider the fact that, I mean, I sort of handled like the image updates and so on for the past half a year. Like going into every repo and making sure like whatever you change in automation image is gonna work is like a pain. Like I'm like if I update an image, I have like 15 PRs. Like this is, I mean we have like I don't know, like 6 big repos. The other ones we don't want to merge probably anyway, but it's nice to have like a single. This is the PR with a new image. It will work, and if there are like major serious changes, or like automation changes. Another example was like the GitHub action broke where I had to, update like how the secrets are defined. And then again, I did like APIs in all these projects. It's just slower. It runs CI anyway on all these projects. And I need reviews now on all these projects with the same change. So more people and
yeah, that's a great point.
CI-wise, I think having one point might be beneficial. The complexity comes in what was discussed in like trying to make things more efficient and figuring out how to optimize what is being tested when we change one. That's the complexity, but I think the other ones will be simpler. Brent?
So maybe we start with keeping the test scope exactly as it is, just migrating the mechanisms. Brent?
Yep.
I was gonna try to ask Paul to, I guess, expound on his comment earlier. I think in general I'm understanding where he's going, but Paul, you did say I think two things, and I just want you to give me more. You said there would be some advantage to putting the 3 repos together that I'm sort of proposing we dip our toes in the water with. You also made the point that until Build and Podman are in the mix, you don't get the big payoff. What were some of the upside things that you initially came to you for the 3?
So the main upside for me is that if I don't know, like Giuseppe is doing like a lot of, or like did this standard chunk work I've seen is like needs changes on storage and image and together sort of thing. If you have that in one repo, I see that as beneficial, being tested as one part. And with common as well, like if we do a vendor release and update like the vendoring, I think it's much more easy for Podman to like update one reference and making sure that reference is going to work because everything in that reference already work together. Sometimes it can be I update C common and I also want to update C image, and now it breaks. A classic example where this is currently breaking, which is kind of a pain in the ass how Go does semantic versioning and releasing of main is every time we do a minor release on a branch, Go thinks that minor release is newer than what we vendored on main. And now renovate all this Go tooling make vendor will downgrade, which is not what we want. So now what we have been doing for the past months is we have to merge the tech back into main to make the Go tooling aware that actually the latest main commit is after the tag. And that works, but it still requires an update on the main commit. And with one repo, you have this problem. You don't have this problem anymore, like from the library's point of view.
Right. Anything else?
For the 3 libraries, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm just going to pull the time card a little bit because we're starting to run out. I'd like to wrap this up in about 5 minutes, and we have a couple folks waiting. So Matt, go ahead.
Sure. So I view this as I'm very in favor of this for context, but I think one of the big wins that we're ignoring here is just getting more eyes on the same repository. We have a lot of different repositories. A lot of them are getting much less traffic than the others. And it's a lot of effort to keep up with issue triage, pull request triage, etc. on all of them. One of the things I think we get out of this is we get the same number of eyes, but on one single repository. And yes, there's no expectation that the Builda or containers image or etc. maintainers are going to suddenly gain magical experience in Podman. But a lot of trivial issues are coming in on all projects. I think having more eyes in general to find those and get them moved through quickly will be a net benefit for everyone.
Okay, great. Jerry?
Matt, I'm glad I went after Matt because I'm the category of person that Matt's talking about, and that I'm not an active developer, but because of the nature of the stuff we're doing with additional layer storage and stuff, I have to be I'm often looking at the code, and it certainly makes it harder for me, and it's kind of a attention dissonance issue that I'm bouncing between multiple repositories. So for me, having it as a MonoRepo, as someone who's just trying to understand the code and how it applies to my other work, a MonoRepo would be beneficial.
You're on mute, Tom, and I'm
Yeah,
guessing you're calling for Giuseppe.
Thank you.
No, yeah, I just wanted to add what Matt said because I pulled my end for I wanted to say that one advantage I see is that we can get more people looking at what happens in the other libraries, because now it's just like few of us that monitor storage and so another thing that I think for users it's difficult to report, and just to confirm this point, because it happens very often that issues must be moved around, and sometimes multiple times, because while you triage the issue, you realize that it happens at different spots. And so at least for the 3 libraries, I think that the split there it's kind of artificial. And having a MonoRepo, it's will facilitate a lot of the stuff we do daily. Usually a change in storage to have a change in storage means keeping 3 work in progress pull requests at different repos and keeping them updated in sync on each change, because you want to validate that it doesn't break the other components. So I think this will simplify a lot the daily work. That's.
Yeah, and I'll just vote in as the person who oftentimes does the vendor dance each time. That would be a big benefit. Just for me personally, it's just to have to do that one step across. And I personally would like to see in the shorter term, not necessarily next week, but for us to at least give the MonoRepo a try for the 3 storage image and common. Dan, eventually the thought is to do Builda and Podman as well. But I think what we're kind of gleaning at the moment is see how it works out for us for storage image common to start, and then bring in the others.
Sorry, was it a question for me or for Dan?
Just answering Dan's question.
Yeah, I was just answering Dan's question.
I see.
But yes, if Jen, go ahead, go expound, especially if I.
No, it's fine. I'm happy with the outcome. It seems that most of the people think that it's probably worth exploring this more. So I will discuss also with you later. But it seems that we should give it some more time and I should try playing with that more and present it further.
Yeah. Let's discuss it again, and also we have other Spike as well to look at other options. Yeah, we can talk about this.
Yeah. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap up this conversation and thank Jan for the presentation and leading the discussions today. I think it was a great topic. And are there any other comments or questions that people want to ask before we tie up this meeting? While people are thinking, I will just give quick reminders that our next Cabal meeting will be on Tuesday, July 1st, 11 a.m. again, Eastern Daylight Time. And then the next community meeting will be on June 3rd, also on daylight time as I make the change in the agenda. We don't have topics for either meeting, so if you have things that you want to discuss about, if you want to demo or have other technical discussions like this one, please add those into the variety of, or not to the variety, but into the agendas for the respective meetings. And once again, any other questions or discussions that we want to get into? I am not hearing anything or seeing anything. So with that, I think we will come to a close for this meeting. And thank you all for being here today.